Hello class. In this video I work example 2 from section 6.7 in your note packet on consumer and producer surplus on page 98. So in example 2 we're given the demand function and the supply function for some tires, for super Titan tires, and X, the quantity is measured in thousands, and so this is the demand function for Titan tires, and this is the supply function for Titan tires. And I've graphed the demand function in red over here in the coordinate plane, and I've graphed the supply function for Titan tires in blue. And you're given that the equilibrium point where the supply curve and the demand curve intersects at the point 8, 80. 8 is the equilibrium quantity, and 80 is the equilibrium price. And you're asked to compute the consumer surplus and the producer surplus for this example. And just as a reminder, the consumer surplus is the area below the demand curve in red and above this horizontal line segment to the right of P equals 80 in the coordinate plane, where it's labeled CS. The formula for consumer surplus, again, is given to you on the exam. This is not something you have to memorize, but you do have to be able to use it correctly. And the formula for consumer surplus is the definite integral from 0 to the equilibrium quantity x bar of the demand function d of x minus the product p bar x bar, where p bar is the equilibrium price, x bar is the equilibrium quantity. So substituting, we have the definite integral from 0 to 8 of the demand function 144 minus x squared, and then we have to subtract from the value of that definite integral the product 80 times 8. This product, again, is outside the definite integral. It's not part of the definite integral. Well, the antiderivative of 144 is 144x. Antiderivative minus x squared is minus 1/3 x cubed. And the limits of integration are x equals 0, x equals 8. And the product of 80 times 8 is 640. Now we put in the upper limit of integration into the antiderivative, and then subtract and put in the lower limit of integration. So when we put in the upper limit of integration 8, we have 144 times 8 minus 1/3 times 8 cubed, and then we subtract and put in the lower limit of integration 0, but when we put in 0 for x in both those terms, right, both those terms are equal 0, so we just end up with 0 minus 0 in parentheses, and then minus this product, 80 times 8, which is 640. Now the simplification, 144 times 8 is 1,152. 1/3 times 8 cubed is 170.667. And then we subtract the 640. And when we do that arithmetic, we get the consumer surplus is equal to $341.333 thousand. And again, is $1,000 because X is measured, the quantity X is measured in thousands. And then when I multiply this number by 1,000, I get the consumer surplus is $341,333. Consumer surplus is $341,333 to the nearest dollar. Okay? So that is the consumer surplus for this example. Next we will calculate the producer surplus. And again, just to remind you, the producer surplus is the area above the supply curve and below this horizontal line segment to the right of P equals 80, where it's labeled PS here. And we will calculate that, and we'll be finished. So the formula for the producer surplus, again, you don't have to memorize these, they're given to you on the exam, is equal to P bar times X bar minus the definite integral from 0 to X bar of the supply function S of X. So substituting, right, P bar times X bar is 80 times 8. And then we have the definite integral from x equals 0 to x equals 8 of the supply function 48 plus 1/2 x squared. Well, $80 times 8 again is 640. The antiderivative 48 is 48x. And then we have the antiderivative of 1/2 x squared, which can be written as 1/6 times x cubed. Right? When you add 1 to the exponent, you get 3. Dividing by 3 is the same as multiplying by 1/3, and 1/3 times 1/2 is 1/6. So you can write the antiderivative 0.5x squared as 1/6 times x cubed. And the limits of integration are x equals 0 and x equals 8. So next, we put in the upper limit of integration. Being careful of this minus sign out here. When we put in the upper limit of integration 8, we have 48 times 8 plus 1/6 times 8 cubed. And then minus a minus positive, and then when you put in 0 for x in the antiderivative, you end up with 0 plus 0. You don't even have to write out the 0 plus 0 if you don't want to. Okay? This, in parentheses, is equal to 300, this first product is equal to 384, and the second product is equal to 85.333. And then when you add these two numbers inside the parentheses, you get 640 minus 469.33. And then when you take the difference of those two numbers, you get the producer surplus is $170.667 thousand. And again, it's $1,000 because X is measured in thousands. And so the producer surplus, I multiply this number by 1,000, is equal to $170,667 to the nearest dollar. And we're done. We have found the producer surplus for this example.